Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Datalist. Today we're going to be doing a portfolio project together. So I'll leave the link to the dataset in the description. I hope you guys can follow along and I hope you guys have a great project by the end of this. So let's get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and remove myself as I don't really need to be here for the rest of this video. So without further ado, let's go. All right, so here we are getting right into it. The first thing we need to do is import our libraries. So we're going to start with pandas, numpy, seaborn, and matplotlib. So you guys, we're doing two things here. We're going to be working with some analysis, and we're also going to be doing some data visualization. So I have a couple details up here. One thing here, you guys, is that when you try to upload the data sets, you might get this error. Now, what happens if you get this error? There's one thing you can do that was just a really quick fix, was to turn it into a raw file. So right here, we just put this R right in front of the file. So remember that you need the file path, which you can do just by going over here. So car, there's that data set. And instead of loading it, sorry, I didn't mean to load it there. So instead of loading it, go to properties. And in properties right here, so you have the location. This location is the path, and then you come up and you take a look at the name of the file. So you need the path and the file name in order to upload this data set. So now this is actually a pretty big data set. So when we try to run this, it actually truncates it, and it just shows the head, the first 5 rows, and the tail. So that's the last 5 rows. So, and let's keep going here, you guys. So let's go ahead and look at that manually. So if we type in car.head, it allows us to just look at the first 3 or whatever number you put in here. Now, the reason why we're doing this is because we want to practice using a lot of different functions. Let's go ahead and use tail next. And here is tail. So when we run tail, it shows us just the last 3 because that's what I put in the argument here. Now, the reason we're doing this is because we really want to get familiar with the data set. So let's keep going on. Let's move down here. So next, what we're going to do is let's take a look at the data types that are here. So we have objects, we have integer 64, we have float 64, and this is basically it. And you're going to find that when we try to do different analyses, that there's going to be some limitations here depending on the data that's available to us. So here's the data types. Next, let's take a look at the columns. So here we have car.columns. We run this, and now we have all of the columns. Now we're about to start to get into some data cleaning. One of the ways we can clean our data is we can rename these columns. You'll see that there, it's not a capital here. It probably should be a capital. Engine horsepower, we know that it's the engine horsepower. We actually don't need the word engine. So what we can do now is let's start renaming these columns here. Before we do that, though, let's take a quick look and just have a short analysis. So we can describe all. There is that code we're going to run. And it gives us, we have the top 75%, the bottom quarter. We have the top. So Chevrolet makes a lot of vehicles. And when we get into our data visualization and we look at some charts, you're really going to see that. So we have count, we have the unique counts. So just as important as the minimum and the maximum, we have the mean or the average right here. So like I said, it's good to just get familiar with the data that you're working with before you get into that cleaning. So we're going to go ahead and get right into the data visualization right now. And we just want to take a quick look here. So we're going to be using a histogram. And so we have the year, engine horsepower. So we have some averages here. These are some really good visualizations. Now, what's important is when you are giving a presentation to a stakeholder, they don't want to see everything. They don't have time for that. They don't really have an interest in that. They want their specific questions answered and, have some extra information if you need it. In school, we always say, show your work. And as analysts, we're always proud of our work and we want to show our work. but the stakeholder just isn't interested in all of the work. They just want their questions answered. They're busy people just like us. So let's come down. And next we are going to take a look at this box plot. So what we can see here is we definitely have an outliers. So compact with a very high engine horsepower. This is probably going to be some kind of sports, high-end sports car. But besides that, we can see the correlation where that the larger the car is, the more horsepower it has. So data visualizations are just so important, so much better than looking at, data on a screen here. So let's keep moving on. The next thing we're going to run here is going to be a pair plot. And we can take a look at some of the trends that we can find. Sorry, it's going to take a moment to load. There's a lot of data. So I'll give it just a moment here. But I made a note that one of the trends that we get here is that the younger the car is, the bigger the engine is, which shouldn't be that big of a surprise because that's just the nature of the beast. We always want it bigger and better and faster. Of course, not so much anymore with gas prices being this high. But so we have a lot of data here. And again, a stakeholder doesn't want to see this, but what we want to do is practice a lot of different commands and keep adding to our skill set here. So let's come down. And now what we're going to get into is we are going to start that data cleaning. So what we want to do is we're going to drop some of these columns. So as you can see, we've dropped about 5 of those columns, and we really just don't need any of that. Number of doors isn't important, market category. So we have our new columns, and next we're going to practice renaming those columns. So here I have the syntax for for dropping those columns. And here I have the syntax for renaming these columns. So instead of engine horsepower, it's just going to be HP, horsepower. Instead of engine cylinders, we're just going to say cylinders. Instead of transmission type, transmission. So you get the idea here. And we just kind of rename those columns that make it easier to read, easier to understand, and remove any of the unnecessary information. So when we come down here, we have all of those new columns. This is much cleaner, actually. All right, so we're going to get ready to start removing some rows here. So the first thing we want to do is take another look at our data set. So we have here 11,914 rows and 10 columns. So now let's count the duplicate rows. So when we run our syntax, we have 989 duplicate rows. So the reason is we want to count all of this. So once we're done with our data cleaning, we also want the numbers to match up. So what let's do is let's do a quick count. So here we go. We have make, model, cylinders. So everything that we had just worked on, here are the rows for those columns. And now let's remove those duplicate rows and let's count it again. All right. So here we go. So car dot drop duplicates, and then we count it again. So as you can see here, we've dropped almost 100 rows per column, and I think we're not done. So aside from just the duplicates, now let's take a look at any null values that we have. So first thing is let's find those null values. So print car is null. One thing you guys may have noticed here is that I'm printing without actually selecting print. So one of the things in Jupyter Notebook is you can just call up the command and run it. I kind of tend to switch back and forth depending on what I'm doing, but usually I don't actually use the print function. So here we go. We have some null values. So now that we have them, let's remove them. All right. So here we go. Drop those null values and let's count it again. So that was 10,925 down to 10,827. So almost 100 rows. I think closer to 75. And this looks very clean. All these numbers are matching up. We have no duplicates. We have no null values. This is getting to be a very nice data set. Now, before we move on, let's check one more time. Let's see if there's any nulls left. None. All right, all of those columns are coming up 0. There are no nulls anymore. The one other thing we're going to check for before we get into this is we're going to take a look at the outliers. And as you can see here, so here is the deviations, these two sides, and here are our outliers. So like I said, you know, we're looking at price right now. These are probably going to be very expensive sports cars. Let's take another look, but let's use a box plot this time. And here we go. We're kind of looking at the same. There's that outlier. Here's the deviations, the standard. All right. So we have another data visualization. And what we're going to do is we have a number of cars by make. As you can see, Chevrolet, wow, they make a lot of cars. So you guys, when we take a look at this here, remember that this is Seaborn and Matplotlib working together here. So I have the syntax, and you know, you can change the labels if you want to, maybe make those capital, but it's up to you guys. But I just hope you're enjoying this video so far, and we're just about done. And here we go. So what I have here for us is a heat map. So this is a really good way to find correlations between variables. Heat map is great at this, and the colors, you can work with that in Seaborn. But as you can see, one of the things here is that as the car gets younger, the engine size gets bigger. And so those cylinders. So guys, that was it for today. We worked through a lot of functions, and I hope you were able to take some things away from this, get some good practice in, and sometimes it helps just having someone work with you, especially when you're a beginner. So I hope you guys had a great time, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye for now.